My name is Diana Mensah. I am 40 years old. I am an interior designer, and on a Wednesday morning in September, a client called me to discuss a project I had never heard of. She said her name was Carol Winters. She said she had been referred to me by a colleague. She said she had been working with me for 3 months through my associate Lisa. I said, "I'm sorry. Can you say that again?" She said, "I've been working with Diana Mensah Interiors for 3 months. Lisa has been managing the project on your behalf. She said you were too busy to take direct calls, but that all the work was being done under your name and to your standards." I said, "Carol, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." She said, "Of course." I said, "How much have you paid so far?" She said, £23,000 in 3 installments, all to an account Lisa gave me. I closed my eyes for 2 seconds. Lisa Osei had been my best friend for 15 years. We had grown up on the same street, gone to the same school. She had been a bridesmaid at my wedding. I had been at her mother's funeral. And for the past, God knows how long, she had been running projects under my name, collecting fees into an account I had never heard of, using my reputation, my portfolio, my 15 years of built trust in this industry. I said, "Carol, I am going to call you back within the hour. Please do not transfer any more money until I do." She said, "Is something wrong?" I said, "I am going to find out. Let me tell you about Lisa first." Lisa Osei was 39 years old. We had been friends since we were 8. The kind of friendship that survives university and moves in relationships and all the ordinary distance that life creates between people. She had come to work with me 4 years ago, not as an employee, as an associate, a flexible arrangement. She helped with client coordination, sourcing, and project management. She was good at it. Organized, charming, clients liked her. I had paid her well, not a salary, a percentage of each project she contributed to. 15%. Fair, clear, agreed. What I had not given her was the right to use my name to take on independent clients. What I had not given her was an account in my company's name that I knew nothing about. What I had not given her was the ability to present herself as my representative on projects I had never been told existed. Carol Winters was not the first call that morning. She was the third. The first call had come at 8:47 a.m. A man named James Fletcher, architect. He had been referred to me 18 months ago. He said he had worked with Diana Mensah Interiors on 4 projects over that period. He said the work had been excellent. He said he was calling because he had a new project and wanted to discuss it directly with me. I had no record of James Fletcher. I had no record of 4 projects over 18 months. I said, "James, I appreciate you calling. Can I call you back this afternoon? I need to pull up your file." He said, "Of course." The second call came at 9:23 a.m. A woman named Sarah Park. She had been a client for 8 months. She said she had paid £41,000 for a full apartment refurbishment. She said the work had been completed last month. She said she had a query about the final invoice. I had no record of Sarah Park. I had no record of a £41,000 apartment refurbishment. By the time Carol Winters called at 10:15 a.m., I had already understood what was happening. I just did not yet know how long it had been happening. The object that held the next 3 days together was a spreadsheet. Not Lisa's, mine. I built it myself over the 4 hours after Carol's call. Every client who had contacted me that morning, every project name they mentioned, every amount they had paid, every account they had paid into. Then I built a second sheet. Every project I had actually worked on in the past 4 years. Every client, every fee, every account, I compared them. The gap between the 2 sheets was not small. 11 clients over 3 years that I had no record of. Total fees paid to an account I did not own. £312,000. I sat with that number for a long time. £312,000. Collected under my name, my reputation, the 15 years I had spent building a practice that people trusted enough to hand over significant money. £312,000. while I sat in my studio designing real projects for real clients who knew they were talking to me. I called my solicitor at 2 p.m. Grace Okafor. She answered on the second ring. I told her everything in 4 minutes. She said, "Do not contact Lisa yet. Not until we know the full extent." I said, "I need to know how long." She said, "So do I." "Can you access the account she has been using?" I said, "I don't even know what account it is." She said, "Carol gave you the account details she paid into." I said, "Yes." She said, "That is where we start." She called her financial investigator, a man named David Park, 51 years old. He had a calculator he trusted more than any software and a manner that made complicated things feel simple. David had the account traced within 6 hours. The account was registered to a company called DM Interiors Associates Limited. DM, my initials. Registered 2 years and 9 months ago. Director Lisa Osei, 2 years and 9 months. I had known Lisa for 15 years. She had been building this for 2 years and 9 months. I thought about 2 years and 9 months of working alongside her, sharing project details, discussing clients, talking about the industry over lunch and coffee and the ordinary texture of a working friendship. She had been listening to all of it and using all of it. The portfolio she had been showing clients was mine. The design approach she had been presenting was mine. The case studies she had been referencing were from projects I had actually completed. She had built a business on the foundation of 15 years of my work, and she had named it with my initials. David found 43 transactions over 2 years and 9 months. Total collected £387,000, not £312,000. I had missed some of them in my initial spreadsheet. £387,000 in 2 years and 9 months. While I sat in my studio working, I want to pause here, because what I felt in that moment was not what I expected to feel. I had expected anger. I felt it. But underneath the anger was something older and quieter. Grief. 15 years. If you have ever been betrayed by someone you loved like family, drop a comment below. I want to hear it. And subscribe right now. Because what happened when I finally called Lisa is the part that I have thought about every day since. I called Lisa on a Friday morning. I had spent 2 days with Grace and David building the complete picture before I made that call. I wanted to know everything before I spoke to her. Grace had advised me to record the call. I did. Lisa answered on the third ring. She said, "Di, how are you?" "I was going to call you today, actually. I have a new lead I wanted to discuss." I said, "Lisa, I need to talk to you about DM Interiors Associates." Silence. 4 seconds. She said, "What?" I said, "I know about the account. I know about the 43 transactions. I know about James Fletcher and Sarah Park and Carol Winters and the other 40 clients." More silence. Then she said, "Di, it is not what it looks like." I said, "Lisa, I am a designer. I know exactly what things look like. Tell me what it is." She said, "I was going to tell you. I was building it up, and then I was going to come to you with a proposal, a proper partnership. I was going to bring the clients I had developed, and we were going to formalize everything." I said, "You were going to bring me clients you had acquired using my name and my portfolio and my 15 years of reputation and present them as your contribution to a partnership." She said, "Di," I said, £387,000, Lisa, in 2 years and 9 months. That is not building toward a proposal. That is running a business at my expense." She said, "I was going to pay you back." I said, "When?" She said, "When the business was stable enough." I said, "You have been stable for 2 years and 9 months. She had no answer for that. I said, "I want the client list. Every name, every project, every amount by Monday morning." She said, "And then what?" I said, "Then Grace handles everything from there." I hung up. I sat in my studio. I looked at the design board on my wall, the current project, a family home in Islington. Real clients who knew they were talking to me. Then I picked up the phone and called Carol Winters back. Grace filed on Monday. Fraud, misappropriation of business identity, breach of fiduciary duty arising from the associate arrangement. Lisa's account was frozen within 48 hours of the filing. The £387,000 had not been fully spent. £241,000 remained in the account. That money was subject to a recovery order. The clients were notified individually. Each one received a letter from Grace explaining the situation. Each one was offered a full accounting of the work performed and the opportunity to transfer their project formally to Diana Mensah Interiors at the original agreed rate. 31 of the 43 clients transferred. 12 did not. Their projects were complete, and they had no further need. I understood that. I wrote each of them a personal note. Lisa engaged a solicitor. The solicitor negotiated for 4 months. In the end, Lisa paid back £287,000. The £241,000 from the frozen account, plus £46,000 from personal assets. The remaining £100,000 became the subject of a civil judgment against her. She has a payment schedule. She will be paying it for years. The 31 clients who transferred, that is the part I want to tell you about. Not because of the revenue, because of what it meant. 31 people who had been working with someone using my name and my portfolio made the active choice to transfer to me when they found out the truth. Not because they had to, because they wanted to. James Fletcher called me personally when the transfer letter arrived. He said, "I want you to know something. The work I received was excellent. Whoever was delivering it understood your approach. But when I found out it was not actually you, I felt something I did not expect." I said, "What did you feel?" He said, "I felt like I had been given a copy of something when I thought I was getting the original, and I wanted the original." I said, "Thank you, James." He said, "Thank you for calling me back that morning." Lisa and I have not spoken since the Friday phone call. I do not know if we will. 15 years is not nothing, but 15 years is also not permission. It is not permission to use someone's work without telling them. It is not permission to build something on someone else's foundation and call it yours. It is not permission to take £387,000 and tell yourself you were going to propose a partnership when you were ready. I have thought about what I would say to her if we ever spoke again. I have not found the words yet. Maybe I will. Maybe the words are not mine to find. Maybe the next move is hers. My sister came to visit 2 weeks after the filing. She sat in my studio and looked at the design board and the fabric samples and the project files stacked on my desk. She said, "You built all of this." I said yes. She said 15 years. I said yes. She said, and she thought she could just take it. I said she thought it was already partly hers, because she had been close to it for so long. My sister was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Proximity is not ownership," and I said, "No, it is not." She said, "Do you know what the worst part is?" I said, "Tell me." She said, "She was good enough to pull it off for 2 years and 9 months. If she had just asked you. If she had just said, 'Diana, I want to build something with you,' you might have said yes." I sat with that for a long time. She was right. If Lisa had come to me with an honest proposal, I might have said yes. Instead, she built a copy and hoped I would never find out. I found out because a client called me about a project I had never heard of on a Wednesday morning in September. 1 phone call, 3 hours of a spreadsheet, and 15 years that turned out to be something other than what I thought they were. Here is what a best friend and £387,000 taught me. Your reputation is yours. Not yours and everyone who has ever been close to you. Not yours and everyone who has watched you build it. Not yours and everyone who has sat in your studio and heard your clients praise your work and thought quietly that they could do this too. Yours, protect it, document it. Know who is using it and how and with your knowledge. And when a stranger calls to discuss a project you have never heard of, ask the questions. All of them. Right then. Because the answer might be £387,000 in 15 years. And you deserve to know that. Drop a comment and tell me your story. I read every single one. And subscribe. I am here every week with a new story. Same ending every time. She stayed calm. She stayed quiet. Then she won.